Okay, here's chapter 2. This is ethics in educational research, and it's a topic that you probably don't think about too often, but it's really important when you're conducting research that we do it following certain guidelines. So we're going to go ahead and scroll through this and see where we land. So some objectives. We're going to talk about the ethical obligations that researchers must follow. And then we're going to talk about the codes and procedures that researchers must follow. There's lots of different rules in place to protect participants in research studies. I'm going to show you a short video that will help us understand that a little bit better.
In 1946, an investigation was opened by the American Military Tribunal at the end of World War II for criminal proceedings against German physicians and administrators, citing participation in war crimes and crimes against humanity. Among the charges was evidence that medical experiments had been conducted on thousands of concentration camp prisoners without their consent, and participants were seriously harmed. As a result of this trial, the Nuremberg Code was established in 1947. Numerous questionable studies still took place in the years following. Well-known examples of this group include the thalidomide birth defects incident in 1950, Henrietta Lacks's unconsented immortal HeLa cells in 1951, and the mistreated Tuskegee syphilis participants from 1932 to 1973. In 1964, the World Medical Association established recommendations for biomedical research, and this formed the basis of the good clinical practice guidelines we now use universally. It states that research in humans should be based on the results of laboratory and animal experimentation first, that research protocols should be reviewed by an independent committee prior to commencement, that voluntary and informed consent is necessary, that research should be conducted by qualified individuals, and that the risks should not outweigh the benefits. Then the Belmont Report was established in 1979, summarizing the ethical principles and guidelines of the Commission for Protection of Human Participants in Biomedical and Behavioral Research. These were respect for persons, autonomy and informed consent, beneficence, the risks must not outweigh the benefits, justice, fairness, equality and equity, and research integrity. So today, ethics in research refers to a set of globally applicable principles that govern the way any research involving interactions between researchers and participants is designed, managed, and conducted. This includes living animals or humans, as well as their associated tissue and data. Ethical research requires the dignity, rights, safety, privacy, and well-being of the participants be respected, safeguarded, and considered at all times, particularly those from vulnerable groups. These aspects are governed by institutional review boards or ethics committees, which are an independent panel consisting of medical professionals and non-medical members that determine if the proposed research is ethical. A research committee is usually comprised of researchers, best positioned to evaluate utility of research and the rigor of the study design, veterinarians able to comment on animal welfare, ethicists who have an understanding of ethical principles and identifying ethical conflicts, and members of public best positioned to identify and advocate social risks and benefits. They are involved in reviewing and approving the study design, research protocol, which states what, how, and why of what you are going to do, the statistical analysis plan, investigator brochure if drug safety is involved, testing and side effects from new treatments, the suitability of the investigators, facilities, and the methods and materials to be used in obtaining and documenting and study consent. They also review the feasibility of animal numbers and welfare in the case of animal research. Human ethics states that you must minimize harm to participants. All research involving people will have a certain amount of risk attached to it. This may be negligible, low, or high levels of risk. Each of these categories may be assessed differently. For example, a new cancer treatment that may have side effects that cause a bit of harm, but the potential benefits of having a new therapy may outweigh the risk. Potential participants will be given a clear information consent form. It includes information like what the study is about and what is required of them, recruitment inclusion and exclusion criteria, the contact details of the researchers for queries, privacy and confidentiality protection information, the right to withdraw, sources of funding, any remuneration for their time, how data will be managed and used, how findings will be fed back to the participants, if any publications will eventuate, and the foreseeable benefits of the work. Animal ethics warrants ethical, humane, and responsible care and use of animals in research, and is founded on the 3 R's principle of replacement, reduction, and refinement, which emphasizes considerations around least harm and greatest utility of research animals. Throughout the duration of your study, you have an ongoing obligation to the Ethics Committee to report any variations to protocols being used, and to seek permission for each change every time with an amended submission. You are also required to report any serious issues or side effects that arise. The welfare of the participants must be maintained at all costs, and all research conducted must be in the best interest of society. Ultimately, it is the researcher's responsibility to ensure that ethical standards are upheld at all times during the research.
Okay, so now we're going to dive back into where we stopped here. So some main ethical guidelines: participants should not be harmed, and researchers must obtain informed consent, meaning that the person who is participating understands all of the things that are supposed to happen or can happen, and consent is always voluntary. They can drop out at any point during the study. So some ethical issues related to qualitative research that are a little bit unique. Really, honesty and justice are the most important concepts, because you are the person who's collecting the data. And sometimes it's, we want to be able to have the trustworthiness that we talked about in the last section, to know that the results that you're seeing and reporting are the actual results. So objectivity is really important. A lot of times we go through a training that then says, you're certified to conduct research. This is one that I just finished. CITI is a well-known program. And if you get a job where you're doing research, you'll probably have to go through one of these. We have an IRB here at Truman Institutional Research Board. I'll take you there in a second to kind of show you around, but just note that there's a whole section where you click in where it says for MAE students, and it has some sample docs and kind of walks through the process of what you'll need when you're getting ready to conduct your action research project. So we have to get permission from stakeholders. So sometimes that's the principal, sometimes it's a school superintendent, parents for sure. And then the students also have to give their assent. It's not consent because they're not of age, but assent, meaning that they agree. And then a lot of times we have permission slips, and the way that we do this is we say, return this if you don't want your child to participate, rather than if you do. It's really hard to get permission slips returned. So easier to create them so that parents are opting out rather than students opting in. This is an example of an assent statement that I've used previously in research, and you can see it's meant to be read to an elementary age student, and in plain language, tell them what I'm doing and why I'm there, and then ask them if they have any questions, and then I begin observations. This is an example of an informed consent. You can see, participation in this study is voluntary. Talks about the risk, rewards, results, how I'm going to use the results, that there's no foreseeable risks. And then there is signature lines here, printed and signed. This is an example of a performance site form. So this is like other stakeholders, and you can see it's basically the same type of thing where it talks about the study, how the results are going to be used. And then it allows for the superintendent, the district supervisor, or the principal to sign. So just in summary, most of what I thought was important in this chapter was captured in that video, but following proper ethical research considerations is super essential. And it's a reason why the Institutional Review Board will pull your research. So back to our overarching research principles: do no harm, and then keeping in mind that participation is voluntary. All of you will have to do an IRB application to be able to start your research. I usually talk about that in my 608 class that my students have to take, but whoever's supervising your research experience will be the person to walk you through that.